everybody. I am really overjoyed to be here with you today. My name is Jen Allen-Knuth. I also go by Demand Jen.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I'm really hoping that picks up steam today. And if you've not guessed it by now, by my pants and my new pair of Dunks, I work for a beautiful company called Lavender. Now, for those of you that have not heard of Lavender, our whole entire mission as a business is to help sellers stop sending emails that suck. How's that for a value prop? Prior to joining Lavender in January, I spent 18 years working for a business called Corporate Executive Board and then Challenger, who is the Challenger sales methodology. I was an individual contributor, which meant for 18 years, I spent New Year's Eve praying to a fax machine or a DocuSign, right? Like, not a sales manager, not a sales leader. And one of the biggest lessons that I learned in those 18 years is to not speak in absolute statements. So what's an absolute statement? An absolute statement is we say, everybody does this, no one does this, we always do this, right? Every time I did it, I realized that's a great way to get an objection. I'm gonna go ahead and break that rule today, and I'm gonna start this with a very risky absolute statement about every single butt in the seat in this room today. I do have a question before I make this and potentially put my foot in my mouth. How many of you are familiar with the great American classic movie, Taken, starring Liam Neeson, where he heroically rescues his dad? Okay, everybody. I'm gonna make my absolute statement about every single person in this room, every last one of you. And here it is. You are Liam Neeson. How do I know that you are Liam Neeson? I'll tell you, there's two reasons. One, the economy is your kidnapper, and ain't none of y'all got the money to pay it off, okay? Step one. More importantly, more relevant to today's conversation, is because I know that every single one of you, as leaders, has developed a very particular set of skills. Skills you've acquired over a very long career. Now, how can I be so confident? I don't know you, I don't know you, I don't know you. But I know you've developed these skills, so I'm gonna prove it to you. I try not to make an audience do a lot of work, but I'm gonna ask you to help me out for one tiny bit. And all I need you to do is yell when I tell you, not just yet. I'm gonna put up a slide, and the next slide, and you're gonna see 10 emails, 10 of them. All I need you to do is the second you think you know the answer, shout out how many of those emails are cold emails. Can I get a yes that we're gonna participate?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even have to ask twice. Okay, 10 emails. Shout out the number that are cold emails. Here we go.
10.
Okay, I wasn't clocking it because I'm nervous and I forgot to, but I would guess that y'all got to 10 within what, 5, 6 seconds? How did you do this? I didn't even show you the damn emails. All you're seeing is subject line and preview text. So Amy, your clue was subject line, right? What about the subject line?
It's all about them, nothing about you.
What are some other cues? Right there. What's the reason you knew these were 10 cold emails?
I hope your week is going well.
That's so nice though, isn't it? Right? You have developed a skill that you probably don't even know you have. And this young man right here, Mr. Will Allred, who if you don't follow on LinkedIn, you must, because this man teaches me every day about cold email. He coined this term, the mental spam filter. This is the skill you've developed without knowing it. You can look at an inbox without even opening an email and be able to tell, this is not worth my time. And you know why you've built this skill? Because it's a freaking coping mechanism, right? You are all senior, way more senior than I am. And the reason you have to develop this skill is because without it, you would never be able to get work done. You would literally spend all day in your email, in your DM, in your voicemail, trying to figure out, is this something that's worth my attention or not? So this is a coping mechanism. Our friends at Litmus actually did some research, which is now outdated since I put these slides together a week ago. That's not telling us how fast things are changing, which tells us most emails are deleted within 3 seconds. That's roughly about the time it took y'all to guess that 10 of those emails were cold emails, right? So to even get into the email is a barrier. The second stat is an average email reading time is about 10 seconds. Now that's down to 9. So I would argue of all the things that we have to think about as go-to-market teams, this is not just a sales problem, it's not just a marketing problem, it's not just a CEO, this is our problem. I would argue that it's not just about cold email, right? It is about communicating and breaking through the noise in an environment where everything's really, really noisy. I've put up 3 other examples here. The first one is, the middle one is one I'm sure we see all the time, right? It's your phone rings, it's spam risk. I had someone call me back-to-back 6 times in a row the other day. I thought my house was on fire. I was in my house, but I was like, surely, there's gotta be flames somewhere. It wasn't, it was just a really eager rep. On the bookends of this, on the left-hand side, I was hopeful in the beginning. I know that many messages are canned. I know I've got to stick out. And then what do? Tell me what your problems are. I don't typically allow strangers on the street to walk up to me and I confess my childhood trauma because that's weird. I don't know why we think that's okay in a DM. On the right-hand side, this is, we all have these, right? I'm not special. This was in seconds of accepting a connection request, that he's embracing our friendship value, but it is not to be misconstrued as instant gratification. I don't know why we're yelling at each other. We just started here, but here we are. So it's not just the email inbox. And so largely what we're going to talk about today is how do you break through this mental spam filter? It's not the physical spam filter in your inbox. It's this thing in our brains that serves everybody in this room so tremendously well, but works against the teams that we manage. Before we talk about what we do, we have to figure out how we got here. So David, whose fault is this?
Okay, that happened twice, David. Let it go.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm gonna stay in my career, sales and marketing. So for those of you who are not familiar with a professor out of University of Texas, Dallas, there's a professor named Dr. Howard Dover. And last year he released a book that I am not compensated in any way to promote, but I just think it's a brilliant book. Dr. Dover is a sales technologist, and he's professor of the sales program down there. And wrote a book about how our pursuit of efficiency has actually in many ways harmed our pursuit of efficacy. And one of the most astounding things that he talks about in this book is what you see here. In the last 7 years, we've seen a 1,000% increase in the number of SDRs. Technology like sales engagement platforms have made these SDRs 10 times more efficient, which means that's a 10,000% increase in prospecting activities. Who feels this? Who sees this? Day to day, right? Like our inboxes are filled with it. I'm sure your phones are filled with it. Your DMs are filled with it. It is a pursuit of more. Now, I'm not gonna stand up here and play the blame game on anybody. I get it, right? It is really difficult to sell and break through the noise. So it is very tempting siren song to say, let's just keep pumping out more. Because if we get more coverage, if we do more, surely the math will work out in our favor. And I refer to this as the easy button because what we're going after here, what we're chasing, is this efficiency game. If I can install a piece of tech and suddenly I can go from sending 50 emails a day to now 5,000, or I can go from making 50 calls a day to making 500, it's a tempting siren song. That's why we call it a siren song. But there are consequences to this. Severe, severe consequences. I work for a company that focuses on email. I'm not saying cold email is the only saving grace here, right? You look at these statistics, on average, we are celebrating a 1 to 5% cold email reply rate. That's pathetic. Cold calling, much better, 2%. And so when you hear all these stats around buyers don't want any sellers involved in the sales process, it's because they are tired of being annoyed. They are tired of being a number. They are tired of being part of a much broader message that has nothing to do with them. And so when you look at a stat like 72% of buyers want a rep-free experience, I don't think that's why any of us got into a commercial role. Right? We didn't get into this to be ignored or a nuisance. And now, you cannot literally walk outside your door or turn on your computer without someone in your face telling you, you've got what? AI, baby, right? I got the chat GPT prompt that's gonna save us all. It's like, it's everywhere. The amount of time I see people spending on just the prompt, I'm like, just write the email. It's like, it's probably way faster at this point. However, it is tempting, right? Because one of the things that's incredibly challenging, I spent my entire career here, is upskilling a seller. And I do not want to minimize it. It's very, very difficult. And so I think there is, yet again, an easy button siren song that is telling us, don't worry about that. Get the prompt right, you'll save the day. So we are at risk, in my opinion, of walking right into another easy button moment. How many of you have heard of the pepperoni hug spot? Show of hands. All right, enough of you haven't, this will be fun. So, for those of you that haven't heard about this is some dude that said, I'm gonna use exclusively AI to create a commercial. Now, I've never been in marketing or advertising, but I do know it takes a hell of a lot of time to create a commercial, right? A lot of resources, a lot of money, a lot of expense. This dude did it in 3 hours using exclusively AI. So should we take a look at what came out?
Yeah.
Please pay close attention to the graphics, pay close attention to what you're hearing.
Bring friends down to Pepperoni Hug Spot. Cheese, pepperoni, vegetable, and more secret things. Eat Pepperoni Hug Spot pizza. Your tummy say thank you. Pepperoni Hug Spot. It's like family, but with more cheese.
So we can laugh at this, and this is actually really funny. If you go to their website, they now have merch. Like, this is a full-on business. I'm like, this is smart. This is really smart. But it took him only 3 hours to create. We could celebrate that. That is efficiency, right? We can celebrate, man, we did this so much faster. I would never be caught dead eating that pizza for fear that my face would turn into the morphed, like, I don't know what that was. So we can laugh at this, but how many of us have seen it only takes 3 minutes to do this, right? Now your job as a salesperson is so easy. It just takes 3 minutes to personalize at scale. This is an actual email that Will Aiken received. It's very obvious when we sit here and look at it what's going on here. You don't have to read the full email, but just look at that first 2 lines. First of all, I hope you're well. We all know we don't like that. Second of all, here is a very obvious attempt at forced personalization. I saw we're both attending Sales Speed Live, Selling in a Recession with Keenan and Will Aiken. This email is to Will Aiken, and I'm impressed with him, ... Are you? What specifically are you impressed with? Right, now, if you go through the body of the email, which we won't, but you can read it if you want, I'm not a fan of the tonality. This is like, your baby is busted ugly kind of messaging. But there's actually good things within this, which is they're saying, I've looked at your website, I've looked at your Instagram, I have some insight about things that may be holding you back. But the problem is, because of our obsession with scale and efficiency, we've blown it. Do we think Will Aiken is gonna spend any time after seeing, I hope this email finds you well, I saw we're both, he knows what this is. And so in many ways, this temptation of AI and do it for us and make it easy, he's walking us into these traps where we're actually harming our salespeople. If this person had just said, screw it, Will, I saw you on this show, and you said this, and it really caught my attention, but this is what I looked at, I bet, I know Will pretty well, I think he probably would have entertained that email. But this is the thing that we have to watch out for. Yes, maybe it took 3 minutes to write this email, but what's the point of wasting the 3 minutes if we don't get any further forward? So in spite of all this, I think we can all agree, it's going to get a lot noisier. We've already seen it. Blogs written by AI, lots of emails written by AI. I am not gonna stand here and knock AI. There are so many use cases I'm personally excited about, particularly as it relates to research. If I can have an AI scan an annual report or 10K, they're absolutely gonna do that faster than I can. But when it comes to making a human connection, which is what sales is, this is where I get fearful. There's a couple things we need to consider. This is where we're gonna spend the rest of our time. This was a study that came out in March. And if this does not make us a little bit depressed over the state of our profession, I don't know what does. These are the simplest, most table stakes aspects of being a salesperson, and this is our report card. Only 25% of buyers surveyed said they believe the seller even understands their role. That's like under 101, right? It's like, what's 99? Maybe we'll call it that. Second, 13% of people say the seller's message is relevant to a challenge we are facing. 9% seller's message is relevant or personalized to me, and 6%, only 6% of people said that they learned something they didn't already know from the message. This is up for grabs. If we simply meet this minimum threshold of just showing them, we understand your role, I've taken some time to learn about what's relevant to you, I've put a little bit of thought into showing you this is an N of 1 communication, and I've done a little bit of work to show you that I have something to teach you, this is what sellers want, and buyers want, and this is what they're not getting. And so in many ways, as much of it's shiny objects and it's tempting to go get so excited about this AI world, I would say this is an issue of fundamentals we've really got a lot of room to win on. And so in order to do that, it's not as simple as just standing here and showing your team, hey, go do these things. Most of you in this room think like a buyer, because you are buyers. You do this all the time. But as someone who was a salesperson, I will tell you, it was many, many years into my career that I was exposed to a sales process that I wasn't part of, right? So I have these assumptions, I have these beliefs, I think I'm doing the right things. The second I got exposed to a buying process, I was like, whoa, I am not doing it right. And so what do we need to do that? There's a few things I'm gonna share with you. I'm gonna summarize it up at the end with kind of an action list of things that I think any leader can take back and share with their team. First things first, this is probably the piece of research that completely shifted my perspective in 2020 when I saw this. So when I was in 2020, I was still a quota-carrying sales rep. After I saw this, I completely changed my motion as a salesperson, and it led to me creating this role of chief evangelist and challenger. Because what this is telling us is out of all the time that buyers spend buying in their groups, in their teams, 83% of it is spent without salespeople. Now, that's depressing enough. Keep in mind, there is an S at the end of that word, meeting potential suppliers. So if we get lucky and we're operating in the rule of 3 and I'm one of 3 they're considering, you know what that means? Maybe at best I get 5 or 6% of that buying group's time. 5 or 6%, I don't care what your price is, what your big ticket, small ticket, what have you, nobody wants to play in this playground. And so what this showed me is we've evolved, right? I remember when Challenger came out with like the 57% of the way through the buying process stuff, and people were literally pissed off. Like they would get on the phone with me, they're like, "That's just not true!" I'm like, okay, it's research. I'm not like, I didn't write it. But you look at this, and it's because we can. I sat in an event a couple of weeks ago where people at the table were literally talking about call connect rates, and they were having a conversation that anybody who sells into that space would have frothed over. Because this is where buyers are learning, because you can show up at events like these, you can go online, you can be part of communities, you can do your research, and candidly, most of us do this, because the last thing we want to do is get schooled or persuaded by a rep. It's the same reason when we buy a car, we don't roll up to the parking lot and say, yo, what do you got in the store? Right? You'd have to be nuts. You know exactly what you're buying, you know exactly how much you're willing to pay, and this is where we're at today. Many sellers are not really internalizing this. They still think that customers come to them to learn the vast majority, when in reality, a lot of times, they're coming to us so they can take an order. If we look at our motions as salespeople, I don't know why I'm so obsessed with Taken. I've seen this movie like 1 time, and it's twice in this presentation. We have to consider that buyers are looking to learn, and many of our salespeople are just simply looking to sell and to pitch. And those two things butt heads. This is a saying that I live by. And as soon as I figured this out as a salesperson is the second that I got much better, which is attention is earned where buyers go to learn. If I am waiting and hoping that a buyer comes around and sees the world the way that I want it to, the way our solution is poised against it, I am going to be disappointed more than I'm overjoyed. And so in order to win this game, we actually have to start asking different questions of our teams. This is a question I've asked probably well over 100 times to sales leaders. And that question is, where do your buyers, influencers, and end users go to learn? I cannot tell you the number of times that sales leaders and their teams said, if I'm being honest, they don't know. I hope they come to our website. I hope they come to our webinars. I hope they come to our events. But how do they get there? What is the trigger event that causes them to say, hey, maybe I have a problem, maybe I should do something about it? This is a question every single member of a GTM team should be able to answer with confidence. I do not fault anybody in this room who's sitting there saying like, I'm not sure if we know. It's okay, right? Because remember, this is a new evolution of buying. It means we have to ask different questions. And if we are obsessed with the buyers and we neglect influencers and end users, good luck cracking through that, right? So we've got to look at it through 3 lenses. Now, the second most important question to ask is, what are they seeking to learn about? This is my opinion of what people want to learn about. If I go out and I'm going to start doing some research, I'm going to start learning, my first question is, do I even have a problem? Second question, how big is it if I do have a problem? Third question, this is status quo, all over it. Can I get away with ignoring it for now? Right? 40 to 60% of deals are lost to status quo, and that is this. Can I just put a Band-Aid on the thing and ignore it for now? And then last and finally, if I can ignore it, what are my options? Now, if we go back to our sales team, if we go back to our content, and we look at where the vast majority of our conversations are happening, I don't know everybody in this room, I'm not gonna make an absolute statement, but from what I see in working with sales and marketing organizations, the vast majority of what we're talking about is under question 4 in our little silo. Here's why our solution is the best. And that is helpful. I'm not saying it's not necessary. But if we wait to help our buyers with their learning to the point at which they've decided they need something, we've truly missed an opportunity to shape their learning in our favor, such that we actually win more attention, win more deals than we would have if we had not. So, do I have a problem? How big is it? Can I get away with ignoring it for now? If we are constantly talking about us and self-obsessed, of course we're not going to be heard. Of course we're not going to gain attention because we're biased. We have to think like a buyer in our conversations and our content. Now we have to ask the question, how are we aiding them in the learning journey? Now I'm going to show you a slide. I take 0 credit for this. Right? I said I started at this company in January. The reason I came to Lavender is because they were so phenomenally different at how they showed up where I was going to learn. So I'm not going to stand here and tell you, you guys need to be on LinkedIn. I'm not going to say it. Some of your buyers are on it, some of your buyers are not. I don't care where you go, but you've got to know where your buyers are learning. You've got to be present there. But when I saw Lavender, there was a really common theme, which was they seemed to just be doing a lot of free consulting, right? Like I kept seeing things, I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm going to take that and use that. I'm going to take that and use that. And so when you look at a slide like this, which is obviously very busy, you're going to see the 3 members of our team that I mentioned today. There's a philosophy in our business which is called give with no expectation of return. This is 100% what drew me to this business as a customer, 100% what drew me to this business to work here. Is because I saw in a world where everybody's like gating things and give me your email address and tell me where you are, this was a company that was giving freely. And so if you look on the left, there's Will Allred's mug again. I'm just getting so many brownie points for using my boss's face. Will literally post 40 pages of email data to say, here's the answers to the test after analyzing 100 million emails. Here's what we've learned helps or hurt. There's no gate. You don't need your email address. He's just giving, right? You look at Will Aiken, who's an actual maniac, if you do not know him. He is truly in a frozen lake. This is not like some fancy ad. This man jumped into a frozen lake recognizing that for one of our segments, our end users, is SDRs. And you know what catches SDR's attention? It's entertainment. So we've got to entertain and we've got to educate. He knows that market tremendously well. So he knew if I jump in a lake, people are going to watch it. Sure enough, they did. We've got Mike Wonder, who is a sales rep, a very busy sales rep, who is making time every single week to produce a 3 Minutes to Sales School episode where he has someone submit an email, he responds to it and says, here's how I'd make it better. Right? Mike has every reason in the world to say, I'm too busy, but he recognizes that in order to win attention, we have to help people where they're learning. And if you look at that post on the very bottom left of this screen, this is the type of thing that really, really got me going. Because that's not a customer of ours. That's someone who's not a customer, who said just by reading our content, they doubled their reply rate. That's the kind of motion that we want to pursue. Is that person going to be a customer? Hopefully. Maybe they won't. But they're sure as hell going to talk to other people about what they learned and share that around. So that's part 1. It's winning the engagement. Now this shouldn't be your end goal, but if you're sitting here saying, yeah, but that's a waste of time, like, who cares? This is the kind of raving fans you get when you just help people learn. This dude is a customer of ours we did not pay, who got a tattoo of Lavender's logo on his arm. This is a real human being, unpaid. Crazy talk, in my opinion. I wouldn't get a lavender tattoo. But this is possible when you help people while they're learning, because learning is a struggle, right? So that's what kind of our North Star was. I'm not advocating that everybody else does it. Now, that's winning the attention game. Now we go back to, now that we've got their attention, how do we make sure we don't lose it at the final mile? So remember this slide? All the things that buyers want to see from us? There's two tests that I talk a lot about. One is the relevance test. Now, this is a higher bar than we as salespeople have been expected to hit in the past. It is. So it is okay if we look at this and say, we ain't there. But the important thing is if we want to be heard, if we want our efforts to be rewarded with mutual communication, we have to take a step further in our thoughtfulness. And it doesn't matter if you're sending an email, making a cold call, sending a DM, using a carrier pigeon. The channel doesn't matter. It's what we're doing. So the 3 questions to the relevance test are this. 1, what is that customer's business trying to achieve? I cannot tell you how many times when I've done deal reviews with reps, they cannot tell me this answer. Plain and simple. It's a bigger problem than we probably want to think it is. This is exactly why that Gong data tells us this person doesn't even know my role, they don't make it relevant to my business, because they don't know the answer. The answers I would get are things like, they're in fintech, they're in ed tech. Like, okay, what are they trying to do? How are they trying to grow? What are they trying to do with their business? What are they up against in the industry? So that's step 1. Step 2, how do they appear to be getting the job done today? If a business has spoken publicly about this is what we're trying to achieve, I can guarantee you, again using absolutes, I can guarantee you there is something they are doing to achieve that. That is their status quo. We sometimes become so enamored with our solutions and what we do that our salespeople fail to appreciate there are other ways to get the job done. And so not knowing this, not being able to identify here's what they believe is good enough, is kind of like walking into a boxing ring, blindfolded, taking the blindfold off, and realizing you've got Muhammad Ali on the other side, right? I want to go against Matt Green. I know I can kick his ass, but I can't do that if I don't know what I'm up against. So again, we've got to help our sellers understand we're not the only trick in the book to solve this problem. What do they believe is the right answer today? And the last one is, again, another big moment that I had where I realized I became so obsessed with what we did, I couldn't imagine why someone wouldn't use Challenger. I was like, it's the best sales training in the world. Of course they're going to buy it. But what I was failing to appreciate is it's the behavior is what they do. And as humans, someone can tell me all day long, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and I will put my wall up. Buyers are no different. Buyers are human. In order to change behavior, I have to change the underlying beliefs and assumptions that sit behind it, right? So if I believe something, I am unlikely to unstick myself from that. But if you can introduce new information about my assumption or my belief, that changes the game. The problem, and the last thing I will say here, is I went through this for the first time when I was part of a buying process. I bought Chili Piper at my last company. And when I saw this, I was like, yeah, we keep losing leads because marketing can't remember to assign them. Like, this is the golden game, let's do this. I couldn't imagine us not buying it because it was such a talked about challenge. But I brought that back to the organization. And what I failed to appreciate is that new solution disrupted a lot of things for a lot of different people. And so my beliefs and assumptions were like, yo, let's go. Everybody else was holding on to, well, if we change this, this happens. And what if this breaks? And what if this breaks? So the last thing here is, this is not done by just an individual. These are sets of people. So we really need to put ourselves in the shoes of the person I'm reaching out to. Do I understand the beliefs and assumptions that may allow them to believe that status quo is good enough? So this is the relevance test. In my opinion, I think this is something every salesperson should be doing when we are targeting an account to make sure we actually have a valid reason for reaching out to them. Second test is the inbox test. So if you are going to email, this is a sliver, tiny little sliver of the type of data we've collected after analyzing 100 million emails. There are 3 big ones that we see being made, errors we see being made all the time. What's crazy is we write cold emails on our laptops. So we look at it and we're like, yeah, that's all right. That's good. Where do our buyers read them? On their phones. Right? So that 2-sentence, like 2-line email on our laptop suddenly is like this on a phone. I got other things to do, I'm not reading it, right? So some of these emails get dismissed before they're even seen. Less than 50 words is hard. I remember when Will came to Challenger and told me I needed to write emails with less than 50 words, I was like, oh, we're different. We've got a different business. And now I hear it all the time, right? It's not different. We are sending emails to human beings. And if we are burdening them, I don't care if you're in IT, if you're selling to HR, if you're selling to salespeople, it is the effort that is required to read a complete stranger's long-ass email. So less than 50 words. If you do this, if you just do this alone, an 83% bump in reply rate. How many of our sellers are sending emails less than 50 words optimized for mobile? Second thing, clarity. 67% bump when you send an email that is written at 3rd to 5th grade reading level. This is against everything we've learned in school. Remember we used to double space our essays, write them like 14-point font, like try to hit that word minimum. Then we step into a sales job and everyone just assumes we know how to write. This is really hard. We'll be honest, like our team, even as someone who works in this business, we hover at about a 7th grade reading level. This takes work. But the answer here is clarity, right? What you're doing is you're making it easy. You stop using words that sound fancy. Like instead of saying visibility, say see. It's something that I noticed when I look back at myself, even when I was starting in sales. I thought using big words made me sound smarter. And I think a lot of times sales reps fall into that trap, and there's a confidence problem behind that, is I just want to show up well. No one sets out to write a bad email. Third one, this is a really fun one, so I picked it. This is a recent finding. We're all being told to use personalization, but what is the worst outcome of personalization in your inbox? It's when someone starts the email with something that's so irrelevant to the body of the message. Like, I went to Penn State, and I can't tell you the number of times I get, we are! And I'm like, we are not reading this email. Like, I'm just not that interested. So it's not to say that it's a bad move. Again, the effort, the intention is there. But when you put something that is irrelevant to your email in the PS, and it's a one-on-one email, you actually get a 35% likelihood of increased reply rate. And it makes sense, right? Because you're still showing that effort to personalize them. Credit to Sam, show them you know them. You're making that effort, but you're doing it in a way that isn't there for getting brownie points, right? No, none of us are gonna pat you on the back because you did your homework and did personalization. It's a core element of the job. In the few minutes we have left, I wanted to make this something that is actionable, right? I can stand up here all day long and run my mouth about this, but there's 4 things I think anybody in this room can go back and do with their team to be effective at cutting through the noise and highly relevant to their buyers. Number 1, educate your teams about the buyer's mental spam filter. I still talk to a ton of sellers who are not familiar with this term. Talk to them about it. Better yet, do what I did. Take a screenshot of your inbox and show them what it looks like. I did a post on this the other day. It was one of the best posts like most engaged posts I've ever done, because sellers said, now I get why you're telling me not to say I hope you're well. I never understood it because I'm like, that's a nice way to open an email, but they saw when every email starts that way, I'm putting myself into a pattern. Now I get it. Context is everything here. I guarantee your team does not want to send bad emails. Number 2, share that stat. 83% of the time is not spent with us. It is a mental shift. We need sellers to understand is that attention is not a given, it's earned. And take that next step to say, let's have the honest conversation. If we don't know where our buyers go to learn, that's okay, but we've got to do something about it. So let's start asking customers, hey, what was that trigger event that caused you to realize, like, I can't tolerate this pain anymore? Where did you go? Who did you talk to? And start mapping that out. It's there for the taking if we take the time to ask the question. Next thing, for buyer questions. It's ugly, but audit your content. How much of our content, how much of our conversation is speaking to our solution versus the do I have a problem, how big is it, what are my other options, can I get away with not solving it for now? How much of our seller conversations are confident in helping buyers with those first 3 things as opposed to the last? It's a tough exercise, but it's worth it. And lastly, the relevance and buyer-friendly outreach. This is something I used to do all the time with our team. In the next big, seller team meeting that you've got, tell them, bring a prospect, someone that you really want to get a meeting with. Bring your outreach to them, and then put it through the relevance test. Do you actually know what this business is trying to achieve? Do you know what their alternative to us is? Are you writing a novel, hoping that they read it? These are all things we can coach. And again, I don't stand up here to knock or say, point fingers or say this is something we should all been doing. This is something we now have to do in response to that buyer's mental spam filter. These are new sets of behavior. These are things your team, I guarantee you, want help with. And these are all things that we are capable of solving for, primarily, most of all, because every one of you in this room has that mental spam filter, and you have that perspective that they are hungry to see. So, if we do these things, if we stop prioritizing efficiency over effectiveness, what we get is not pizza magic, it's prospecting magic! I hope you all had as much fun as I did up here. Thank you so much.